Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. You are on to the program where we review major news that made the headlines across southern Nigeria in the past week. My name is Amzad. With me,
And I'm Louis. Compliments of the season.
same here. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we're here to do what we know how to do best. Stay tuned while we give you the major news that made the headlines during the week.
Nigerians faces challenging festive season amid power outages. INEC announces dates for by-elections into Aoda East 2 and Kana 2 constituencies in Rivers State.
And also in the news, Fargot 25-story Great Nigerian Insurance House in Lagos. And also in Edo State, Okpewolo signs 939 billion naira 2026 Edo Appropriation Bill into law.
And lastly, the 2025 CAF African Cup of Nations kick-off in Morocco. Stay tuned for a detailed review of the news.
Welcome back. Hamzat, during the week, a lot transpired, but we're going to be looking at some major headlines that really capture the attention of Nigerians. Most especially, in fact, too many happenings, but we're really going to be looking at some areas that really capture the attention of Nigerians. Probably we can't look at every areas, but we have to look at some specific areas. And this area we're going to be looking at is this area of electricity, because in fact, almost every area in Nigeria or major parts in Nigeria were affected by the electricity problem, by the power outage during the festive season. So I would like to ask you, what are your opinions issue of power outage which was faced by so many Nigerians during this festive season?
Yes, it is saddening in this time of our nation's history that we are still talking about the issue that have to do with electricity, no electricity, epileptic power supply. Point of correction,
Okay.
you talked about power problem, power outage faced by Nigeria during the festive season. It is not just during the festive season. Even while we are here in the studio, we know what we are relying on. That it has only to do with the national grid. Besides, Nigerians have been suffering the lack of electricity, which was compounded attitude of those saddled with the responsibility to ensure adequate power supply. Remember, this current government of President Bola Tinubu promised they are going to ensure power supply for all Nigerians, not some Nigerians. That this whole power issue has been there, like I started with this conversation. It has been there. But in 2013, Nigeria expected that the power privatization will improve power. Then today, we are still talking about inadequate power. And we are talking about festive season. On the 24th of this month, the eve of Christmas, the Minister for Power, Adebayo Adelabu, promised there will be power in the next 48 hours. That was after the cry by Nigerians that, oh, are we going into this Christmas, this festive period, this Yuletide again without electricity? But mind you, on Christmas Day, day after Christmas, up till this day, we are still talking about no power. And remind us, there are some areas that we not be talking about lack of electricity as it stands today in Nigeria. While some areas are complaining about a plenty power supply, lack of power supply, they never have power to celebrate their Christmas and New Year. There are some areas today in Nigeria, particularly in our backyard there in Edo, that doesn't have the laws, they don't have electricity. These areas have to do with the rural areas, area like Abudu, area like Ayeguri, area like Ugbeno, area like Ikabigbo, area like Iraho. All these areas are in Edo State, and all these areas have political leaders that come for this area. Area like Ikabigbo is the community of this current APC chairman, talking about Jared Tinubu. But as I speak to you for the past 7 months, that area have been without electricity. They're talking about area like Abudu and adjoining communities. They have someone like the deputy speaker talking about Ibagoita Atu, the deputy speaker of Edo State House Assembly, is from a neighboring community in Abudu, especially Abudu, that are affected by this lack of electricity. And this has been on for say more than 10 years, but nothing meaningful has been done. They keep promising that they will fix the situation, but yet all are just mere lip promises. So I will say the issue that have to do with electricity has did not start today. It has been there, but that issue must and should be addressed so that taxpayers will have value for their money.
You've spoken very well about this issue. You understand, because talking about these areas you just mentioned, these are key areas. I could still remember when I went to Abudu the last time when I visited you at your office. I discovered there was no power supply. I asked you how are these people coping, knowing fully well this is an area, this is one of the major towns in Edo State. So Abudu is a big community, I wouldn't call Abudu a rural area. Even all these other areas you mentioned, it's really sad. But going back to the Electricity Act, which has been put into law in 2023. Now, Edo states have domesticated that Electricity Act, which ensures that, which makes Edo State, which has given Edo State the sole right to generate and even transmit and even distribute electricity. Now, that's a good one. We know how it all started. The framework was put in place by the past governor who just left office. Now, Okpebholo has signed this bill into law. Now, I believe as time goes on, he should try and expedite action. Now, just 7 states in Nigeria have been able to put this electricity act into law. They've domesticated it. We have Edo, we have Imo, we have Enugu, we have Oyo, we have Ekiti, Ondo, and we also have Kogi. Now, another states are also in transition, because I understand even the Minister of Power, the Minister of Power, who said recently that one of the problem with the grid collapse is as a result of pipeline vandalism. You understand? So he was talking about pipeline vandalism, which affects the gas, which has affected which affected the gas supply, and these have disrupted power supply. But now I believe this problem now, the Edo State government have been able to set up Edo State Electricity Regulatory Commission, now even the Edo State Transmission Commission, even the Edo State Distribution Company. But now it's, I believe at this point, it involves a whole lot, because now they still need the national grid, irrespective of the fact autonomy is not, has not been fully granted, in the sense that they are not fully operational despite the autonomy. So they still rely on the national grid, and they still need some funding to ensure that all of these things are in place. But I believe if it pumps money into the power sector, a whole lot will be achieved. So that is what the state governor should be looking at now, since he has made a move for electricity autonomy. He should also look at now is how to empower that sector financially, because it's not just to put pen to paper, it's to put it into work by investing capital massively into this area. Because when the states, when there is power supply, it can drive home investment, and at the end of the day, there will be a lot of progress in the state. So I believe the state government should move towards this area at this time, because power is a very important area we should not play with. So it's very important the state governor expedite action in this area.
Also, in the week under review, Louis, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, announced a date for by-election into Auda East 2 and Kana 2 constituencies of Rivers State, following the seats declared vacant by the Independent National Electoral Commission earlier this month. So, what's your take?
Well, I would say it is long overdue. You understand? Because when you look at Rivers State's the political turmoil in that state, has maybe it has necessitated for the delay for this constituency election, rather this by-election. So I believe that they were just waiting for the tension to cool off, or rather to cool down. Now, looking at the two seats that is being contested, now we have the like of Edisine here from the Auda 2 constituency, and we have Nuleben of Kana 2 constituency. Now, you remember Edisine here was a fashionable speaker in the house, and he, at a point in time where there was tension in the house, so he had to, after some time, I don't know, probably maybe after some meetings or thereabout, he had to resign. So, and this has been dated, in fact his resignation was, he tendered his resignation December 2023. So it's been a very long time. So like I said, they've been waiting for the tension to cool. Maybe probably they just want to ease tension and want the state to be calm before the election can be conducted. So it's a good one. And also the other member of the House who passed away. So for both of them, it's good now they are conducting this election, because it's good that every constituency is, all constituencies are evenly represented. So I would say to the Rivers State people, they should be very, in fact, they should ensure that they come out en masse and vote for their candidate. And this is a barometer, just like a barometer to test the candidate and to test the parties. It's long overdue. And also to the people, This is a time for them to come out en masse and ensure democracy wins. So it's not about the party, it should be about the candidates. It shouldn't be about political structure. It should be the people deciding, making their choice, choosing their representative, because this is a democratic dispensation. So I will advise the state government, or rather the Seminari, Fubara, and even the federal government to try as much as possible to ensure that there's no tension. They should let the polity they should relax the tension when it comes to the polity. The polity shouldn't be heated, so the people should be given the free will to decide who to represent them.
Yes, you spoken well, Louis. Like what you rightly said when you started, you talked about the by-election, the call for the by-election is long overdue. Yes, it's long overdue for the people of Awoda East 2 and Kana 2 constituencies right there in Rivers State, because the election is for them to choose those that will represent them at the Rivers State House of Assembly. Those that resign, talking about Edison Heye, resigned in 2023, then Lulu Ben that passed away in 2023, 2024, now December 2025, they are announcing the by-election for February 21st, 2026. So you see, it's a whole long period. That's why I corroborated your view when you said it is long overdue. Yeah, long overdue. Besides, the date have been announced. They don't forget that INEC just have to invoke section 116 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We talked about filling of seats that have been made vacant within 90 days. And I believe INEC have done well in that regard. And it's now for the people to take it on from there and canvass for the candidate of their choice. They should not be coerced, they should not be cajoled or be pushed or be brought over or try to sell their vote for any for any political interest. The period that they never had representative in the State House of Assembly, we will say they missed, but that gap does have to be filled in the interest of democracy. So I am taking this to the River State people, especially people that came from the two constituencies, talking about Awoda East and Kana 2, to seize the opportunity to look well and choose those, like I explained earlier, that will well represent their interest in the River State as of Assembly, because they waited for too long to be represented. So now is the time to seize that opportunity and put the right people in the right place to represent their interest.
During the week, well, I don't really know. In fact, it's becoming a common occurrence, when it comes to the dry season. Yeah, fire outbreaks. It's now becoming a norm. So during the week, in fact, just a few days ago, this one really painful. It was a painful loss. Those who probably who had their wares, or who had their goods in the warehouse. Well, let me just go straight. Let me not beat about the bush. In Lagos, the story is no longer news that fire got the 25-story Great Nigeria Insurance House in Lagos. So what I discovered was, before now, that house was formerly an insurance house with offices and all of that, but over time it turned out that it's no longer used for its original purpose. So we now have traders, merchants who are now occupying the building with their wares, with their goods, and something that really made the inferno, you understand, the inferno to get out of hand, to be uncontrollable, was the fact that there were combustible materials inside the building.
Flammables.
Yes, you have clothing materials, you have nylons, you have all sorts of materials, and these materials are highly combustible. And we were made to understand that the fire service, they were very prompt. You understand? They were prompt. I really commend. I would say I've seen the Lagos State Fire Service. There is one or two issues that maybe if a fire outbreak, I see the way they turn up. They are not doing bad, but I know the government still have a lot of role to play in this. But that aside, now what really made this fire outbreak really uncontrollable was that you find out that the building, the state of the building, it had adjoining buildings very close to other buildings, and as a high-rise building, you know, it's not very easy. It's not very easy to control, to contain, or to contain the outbreak. So it was really a sad one. And there was something I also observed. You know, Nigerians, they really need to take this area seriously. You know, the area of ensuring every of these buildings there are water sprinklers. You know, this you should put
Hydrants.
yes, you should put all these measures in place so that when things like this comes up, before the fire service even comes to put up the fire, at least to an extent, the measures, rather what they have within the building would to an extent be able to contain the problem before the fire, before the arrival of the fire service. But these safety measures were not there. It wasn't there. So I would say it was really a sad one, because thank God no life was lost. We had about 7 to 10 persons who were injured, but they were taken to the hospital for treatment. And even the state governor is talking about demolishing the building completely. You understand? So because it's just because if you observe the fire service, the firefighters were there for over a day. The Christmas Eve, even to Christmas, till Christmas, trying to
Contain the fire.
It wasn't an easy one. So I really commend them. Commend their efforts. Though it seems like they were unable to do a lot. I believe why it was not easy for them, it was as a result of the combustible materials, the flammable materials that was in the building. And also it wasn't easy because of the nature of the building, you know, trying to see how you can maneuver, meander your way, especially if you're trying to curtail the front. How do you get to the back? And these buildings are the structurally, yes, it wasn't really easy for them. So I would say in fact, a whole lot need to be considered. In fact, when it comes to building, especially high-rise buildings, I believe the government should step up and see how they can manage the situation. For just like they should be able to foresee, or rather, they should be able to see, okay, what if something like this comes up in the future? How are we able to contain? So this should be taken into consideration before erecting high-rise buildings. And also having high-rise buildings like this, where you have all this kind of material. Imagine the amount of money that was lost. I even heard some importers, they have their wares in these buildings. So for you to have millions of naira of your goods stuck in a building, you are supposed to also think of measures should the case there is fire outbreak. I believe the people, the occupants of these buildings, they were not they were not cautious enough. They never thought of they were not thinking of putting safety, or if they had safety measures in place, it wasn't very good, because if they had, they would have been able to try, it would have been able to, the problem would have been curtailed and would not have escalated the way it did. So it's a lesson for Nigerians they must ensure that they put some certain things into consideration. It should always be safety first.
Yeah, safety first, like you rightly said, because that situation, the avoidable fire outbreak that took place over the week right there at the Marina building, just quite unfortunate because it's one incident too many, and like rightly highlighted, if you check properly, you discover that it's just lack of what we say adhering to safety measures when going about our lawful businesses, and the failure of authorities to enforce environmental laws, because in this case there are some materials that are not allowed in such a structure, in an environment. There are some businesses you don't allow to take place in a particular environment. That is where town planning comes in. That is where we're talking about public safety comes in. But because of failure of governance, we have to see these things keep happening over time. Talking about fire disaster, and back to those that are affected victims. Yes, I feel for them actually, but it's very important at this time of our nation's history that we don't need to leave everything to the ends of government. Imagine that particular building don't have any first aid measures to first of all curtail the fire before the arrival of the fire brigade or the fire service or whatsoever. Like Randy said, they came there very early, but they could not get the needed or the right access to enable them do justice to the inferno, because of why the way the people living there were living, they never planned for such an emergency. So the governor talking about bringing down the building, I believe that should be the right thing to do at this time, because since the building have been heated, the building cannot stand the test of time, because it can collapse at any time. So for safety reasons, like we started with this discussion, for safety reasons, the government of Lagos State just have to see how they can do anything necessary to ensure the safety of lives and property. And mind us, it is important at this time to tell Nigerians that wherever you are doing business, whether be it a shop, be it a marketplace, ensure there what we call fire safety measures. It is very important, and especially what we call the fire hydrant. You have to have where you have availability of water, where you can easily draw your hose and see what you can do before the arrival of the fire service. And again, especially those trading in the market, we should ensure to create spaces, create avenue whereby when there is emergencies, these first responders, these fire service personnel can have easy access to areas affected by fire, because most time the fires usually start in a particular area before it spreads. But I believe if the fire service have easy access, quick access to the root of an inferno, I believe that will be curtailed. But in this case, we discovered that the Lagos State Fire Service struggled to put out the fire because of the materials that were there. I believe lessons shall be learned by both the government and the governed, so that in future there will be no such unfortunate occurrence.
During the week, in the past week before this week, remember the governor submitted the budget. It was an appropriation bill. It was submitted to the House for deliberation, for consideration. But this week, the bill has been passed into law. You know, we deliberated earlier on as regards to that bill, you understand. But now it has been approved, or rather, it's no longer just a bill, it has been passed into law. The budget is now fully effective, and we're talking about 939 billion naira. Very massive. The biggest ever in the history of Edo State. Now, looking at this budget, like I said in the past week, where it was brought before the House, I said, this is a massive budget that will really go a long way to better the lives of Edolites, transform the citizens, in fact, transform the state to a very large extent, that we will know that yes, something has happened in the state. Because when you talk about 939 billion, it's you just talk about it like you know, if you calculate this figure, if you calculate it, if you know
it's
1
naira, it's almost a trillion.
yeah, if you know 1 naira, 2 naira, 3 naira, 1 million, you know how many millions are in this 39 billion. You know we are in for something very big. So now, according to the budget, the governor, he said 62% would be for capital projects, which involve power, infrastructure, education, agriculture, and the rest. And the recurrent expenditure would be 32%, which is also very good. The state government should not just be paying salaries. The budget should not just be for government expenses. So it's good that we have a lot for capital projects. And now, at this point in time, to meet up with this budget, I believe the state government should also try to ensure that they see how they can generate revenue from the state, so that we don't have budget deficits at the end of the day. So the state must see how they can generate revenue, because this is a very big and a massive budget, so they don't just rely on federal allocation. So that at the end of the day, we can even have budget surplus. And now there's something I'm looking at here. You know, when you talk about, the government is talking about infrastructure, talking about agriculture, like I said in the last time, how this monies, or rather how this budget, the allocation is what matters. Now, if you're talking about improving agriculture, you're talking about investing massively in agriculture, how are these monies, or rather how is it going to be allocated? Because when you're talking about agriculture, you're looking at, the first thing that comes to your mind is rural areas, because these are the areas, the agrarian communities where farming holds sway. So what measures, or rather what is the government, what do they have, or what plan are they rolling out to ensure that they are able to meet with farmers in the rural areas? And how also are they trying to see, because it's not about these rural areas, most of these roads, some of these farms, or rather some of these rural areas, these agrarian communities, the problem has always been poor road network, because some of these roads are non-motorable. I believe if the government wants to invest massively in agriculture, first thing they must do is how to connect the rural roads to the urban areas. They must see how they must ensure that these rural areas, the roads are in order. Power, and also power is another major area too. They must see how they ensure that these rural communities, they invest, they power, they get power. And not just that again, they must also ensure that the government, this budget should see how it can encourage urban-rural migration. Because whether you like it or not, imagine if the government is investing in agriculture, and when you talk about investing in agriculture, you're talking about the rural communities, the rural areas. That boost can encourage urban-rural migration, which is not even which is fair, because if you go to most of our rural communities, we don't have people living in these rural areas, because a lot of persons are moving to the town and they come here, they hustling for job, hustling for better life. If agriculture, if there's better, if the government invests more in agriculture, meaning we'll have more people going to the rural areas investing in farming. So the government should see is not just investing in this, what plans do they have? Now, talking about roads, infrastructure, who are going to be awarded this contract? What are the timelines for this contract? It's not about awarding contract. You award contract for the year, but the contract spans up to 2 years. So that is, it's a deficit on our part, because you now end up the other years using that the budget for the other year to also finance that place. So the government must make sure, like I said, I am not wowed or thrilled by figures. What I'm after is how this budget translates to changing the lives of ordinary Nigerians, of the common man in the streets. How this budget provides jobs, electricity, how this budget provides good hospitals with better equipment to treat our citizens. How the government can see, it's just about making life better for the people. That should be the bone of contention. If this it should just be a bogus budget in figures and not translating to impacting on the lives of the ordinary Nigerians. So if it's not going to be doing that, if lives are not going to be changed positively, then to me this will just be another story, just like the Two-Face Idibia once said, they want to tell us another story again. So it shouldn't just be about coming to talk, or rather coming to present a budget and calling out figures. Edo State, the citizens must see how they must ensure that these budgets and the allocations are transparent and it is monitored to the latter. Every citizen must rise up and see to it, see how this budget, in fact, how the monies are going to be allocated, and how it must, in fact, the money that will be spent on each of these budgets, the contract that are going to be awarded, the citizens have, in fact, Edolites have in fact, they have the power, and it's their right to know where this money is going to. Because at the end of the day, this money is for every Edolite. It's not for anybody or for some group of people to just sit down and decide how they will share. No. As a citizen of Edo State, as a bona fide citizen of Edo State, you are entitled to the benefits that accrues from that budget. So every Edo citizen must rise up and see how they monitor this budget. In your constituencies, in your local government, monitor every project that is being awarded. Find out how much was awarded. Find out who the contractors are. When in the case of delay, monitor it and cry out. Because if we fail to speak up, we'll continue wallowing in self-pity and we'll continue complaining. Like I said, I wouldn't want a situation where we'll be complaining on social media, where we'll be complaining every time. We have the power to act, and we must use that power based on the Constitution. Find out your rights as to the demands of how monies are being spent. Find out and know how to go about it, so that at the end of the day, money is meant for you, money is meant for every Edolite, will not end up in the pockets of the few. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Louis, you spoke extensively regarding the budget and
It's a big one, so
the big budget.
so we just have
Yes, the big budget. Like I interject when you were speaking. Remember, I said almost a trillion.
wow.
It is not just a small budget because it's the highest in the history of Edo State, and it should not be another budget
Yeah.
where they just the governor just go to the House of Assembly, present budget, before you know it, the House of Assembly, you pass the budget. No. Yes, we will say it has to do with the synergy or the relationship between the executive and the legislative arm to being cordial, which is a welcome one. They are using it in the interest of Edo people. But besides, somehow, we still think the budget ought to have been looked with a third eye to either add or reduce. But this
Yes.
case is just like express, like saying if there was no House of Assembly, we just measure an amount and pass it into law. So there was no what we call what we call there was no foot dragging or there
Yeah.
was no delay in considering
Passage was
the
very
budget.
steady.
The budget. However, like I always like to tell people of Edo, is to focus more on governance, not the drama that have to do with politicking, because it is because the politics between the executive and the legislative arm was going smoothly. That's why we are talking about a smooth passage of the budget. But besides, the budget has been passed, the bill has become a law since the governor signed it, which is the week under review. A budget of 939 billion naira. It is no small money. So, with focus on more than 60% of the budget allocated to the economic sector, you made mention of urban rural migration, no more rural urban migration.
Yeah.
But because for donkey years, for ages, we're talking about rural urban migration because of lack of development at the grassroots and the rural area. So we're using this medium to ensure that whatever money is being budgeted for the agricultural sector and the power sector is majorly channeled to those underserved area, the rural areas, those that have been neglected for years. Area like Edo Central, particularly this MOE Igoro, this road from Ekoma, they say it's a federal, but mostly that road link to a community that is regarded as the largest producer of pineapple in the
Wow.
whole of the West Africa sub-region. Though it is not yet verifiable, but the last time I visited the community, I would say I will accord them that status, because majorly across the country you see traders from the north, from the south, from the east, everybody coming to that community, especially market days, to come and do what, buy pineapple in bulk. And the road in accessing the community is nothing to write home about. And we know the state government collects revenue from this market, from these transporters. I think it is high time where whatever budget we are budgeting for agriculture and infrastructure, we should look at that area. And again, in Edo here, talking about Orion Abudu, the administrative exporters, have been without electricity for more than 10 years. Not just Abudu, adjoining communities for more than 10 years without electricity.
My God.
And it has been there, they have been crying, they have been clamoring, calling for the state government to come. Yes, there have been some efforts, but the efforts have done nothing to restore power. And again, there have been promises of power restoration by one politician, one successive government to another. But as we speak, Abudu and adjoining communities, they don't have electricity. Talking about other communities that are suffering lack of electricity, talking about Ayoguri, Iraho, Ip Kabigo, and Ugbeno. These communities in this local government areas of Edo State and other communities in Edo North, Edo Central, even here in Edo South lack electricity. They be without electricity. They have been clamoring. They have been calling on the state government, lamenting. So we are using this medium to tell the state government to ensure that whatever money, whatever funds are being allocated to infrastructural development, we should look far to the rural areas. We should spread development to those areas. We should leave the city center and go to the rural areas, because if those persons that have been deprived of development in these rural areas, in these grassroots, decide to migrate down to the urban areas, you will see that infrastructures in these urban areas will be overstretched. And we know how government are slow to taking decisions. So in fixing this infrastructure, it will take another donkey years. But in order to avoid such an overstretch, such an uneven development, I think the government should at this time take advantage of this huge budget and ensure that every community, every local government, every senatorial district of Edo State feel the impact of this 939 billion naira that have been allocated as the budget for 2026. No area, no corner of Edo State should be left behind. Also, in the week under review, precisely last week, Sunday, the African Cup of Nations kick-off in Morocco. Another tournament for the Nigeria Super Eagles.
Well, like I would say, I've always talked about the Super Eagles. Each time I talk about the Super Eagles, a lot of persons are always saying, "Oh, you are a pessimist. You don't talk well about your country's football team." But I don't know, sometimes when you are trying to be realistic, a lot of people take it out of context. Mind you, we have a Super Eagles team that lack flair. The way they play, there's no enthusiasm. There's no, they don't play with zest. It's just like everyone is just coming to do their own thing individually. When it comes to football has always been team. That's why it's called a team. It's teamwork. When it comes to the Super Eagles, you don't see that connection. Everyone is just running on his own. Like, look at the last time, DR Congo, you saw what happened? Where we were supposed to even qualify. Just imagine DR Congo. I understand that things have changed lately when it comes to football. Some persons will say there are no smaller nations.
Yeah.
You can't talk about that when it comes to teams like Senegal.
Yeah.
Who knows their onion? So it's just the Super Eagles, this present crop of players in the Super Eagles, I believe they are tired. And one of the issues they behave the way they do is because they don't have persons who compete with them. Understand? Look at the likes of Ndidi, for instance. He has been there for years. If he has someone who is also very good in that role, who is doing very well or doing better than him, probably it will make them sit up. And I believe after this competition, like I always say, I'm not expecting much. I don't want to even expect much, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be heartbroken, because after the DR Congo match, I know how I felt that day. I don't want to expect much from them, because they've not given me that confidence, like I can put my money on them. So I would say the Super Eagles, with the way they are playing, but the problem is the zeal is not there. So if they can put their ass together and they are able to talk to themselves, they are able to know who they are, they are able to talk to themselves that we are super egos. We've been doing this. We are known for victory. Right from the time of Odegbami, that name alone should send shiver to the spine of their opponents, believing that they can do it, it's possible. But if they go with that same with that same mindset they had in previous time, it's going to be, in fact, it's going to be a very sad one for them.
The Nations Cup have kicked off, and we'll see the Super Eagles. They don't have a choice other than to bring that cup home, because the last time they were there at the Nations Cup, we remember they came home with the silver medal, so they came second. So, judging from their performance in the World Cup qualifier, especially that last match with DR Congo, that saw Nigeria crashing out of the World Cup, was one that any Nigerian, a football loving Nigeria, will want to remember, because Nigeria should be competing for the World Cup at this time. Nigeria should be the top 4 in the World Cup. Nigeria should be talking about, not this at this stage. We are talking about Nigeria struggling with DR Congo, struggling with Tanzania, struggling with Tunisia and other teams. Yes, we know things have changed, but by the caliber, with the caliber of stars the Super Eagles parade, we ought not to be talking about missing out at the major tournament like the World Cup. But however, we are there, right there in Morocco now, to compete for the converted trophy. I expected, like I explained, that the Super Eagles bring that trophy home. That is what Nigeria need at the time, not their performances. And they should do well to show patriotism, like the likes of the 1994 team, the Tunisian 94 team that went to the World Cup 1994, then went to France 98. That passion, that national passion that you see in every player that don the green, white, green, unlike what we are seeing today. You just see every player want to outshine themselves instead of playing as a team and putting their best from the start to the end. We should not be going back and forth with this performance thing. This is the time to bring back the trophy. I mean the African Cup of Nations, the 4th time. So we should do well to see how we can put smiles in the faces of Nigerians who have suffered heartbreak, especially that have to do with crashing out of the World Cup. So this is the time to redeem for that. That's all we can take on the program, where we review major news that made the headlines across southern Nigeria the last week. Luis.
Remember, it's Yuletide. Have fun and stay out of trouble.
Till then.
See you next week.